Dustin not here again?
Yeah.
Oh, it was two of them.
Are you really calling people that are not out?
She's here last night.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to scare it out when I slide.
You can slide down there. Great idea, thank you.
Oh, yeah, we normally do that.
Yeah, thanks.
How are you? So good to see
It was good to see you yesterday, too.
you. Yeah, right?
Yeah, that was good.
Oh, good.
That was really good. I think we're finally now getting to the really.
See you before the saw you at the beginning. Good to see you. Good, good.
People on the Zoom, can you hear me?
Worried about video.
Yes? Okay, so thank you very much for being there. Once we get the agenda going, we'll call on you. You'll know what time for you to jump on. It's yours.
Call the meeting to order tonight. Let's start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One announcement tonight, Mrs. Miller will not be in attendance tonight, for a personal matter. And can I get a motion to adopt an agenda? Bob is first, Joe is second, all in favor? Motion passes. Study session meetings are designed for the purpose of having administrative updates to the Board of Education. There are no public comments at study session meetings. Residents may attend the next scheduled business meeting on May 11th, 2021, and/or contact the board via email at boe@shenschools.org with any comments or questions. All questions come into the Office of Public Information Officer and are shared with the board and/or superintendent as appropriate. Policy questions, concerns are typically addressed by the board president. Operational questions, concerns are typically addressed by the superintendent and/or designee. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to comments by Dr. Robinson.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stevens. First of all, it's great to be back at the board table. I missed the last board meeting, And thank you very much, Dr. Wood, for sitting in my stead. So I'm back better, bionic knee and all, ready to climb new mountains and go to new heights. And so thank you very much for board members reaching out and extending their support. So I appreciate it very much. Plus, Mr. Gilbert said that he did it twice and I should stop being such a wimp and come back to work. So I'm not sure what he meant by that, but I came back to work after he said that. So thank you. So just a few things I want to mention because as we sit here at the end of April, this is typically the start of what I call that crazy month of May, June, where it seems like it's just 2 months that's merged into one. And a lot of things happen very quickly, and it's a lot of wonderful things happening, but it's still a lot of things. And so I just want to kind of bring you up to date on some of those kind of things. But before, so I want to start off with a recent engagement myself, Ms. Stevenson, Dr. Wood had with the town of Clifton Park. So the town of Clifton Park has, for lack of a better word, I'm sure there's another name for it, a diversity committee. And they've been reaching out to various organizations, the sheriff department, schools, different entities, to talk about different initiatives that's taking place in those organizations surrounding the issue of diversity and inclusivity. And I was actually very pleased to see and hear that the town is engaged with that, and appreciate Phil Barrett, town supervisor, reaching out to us and inviting us. So we're privileged to be at that meeting. And so I'm not going to try to rehash the entire meeting, but it was great to hear from parents, and we had students there, and not only the questions or concerns they had, but also, quite frankly, their view of how we're doing as a school. I was largely to say it was largely positive, and yet, people had very honest stories of situations that occurred and things that we know that drives us to do the work every day. And so concerns around diversifying staff. It's been a big focus of us as a board. Concerns around in terms of ensuring that equal access for all students to things such as honors programs and courses that sometimes, as a result of what I'm going to call gatekeeping process, some students feel and some maybe legitimately aren't accessing as well. So we spoke about things such as the fact that when we paid for PSATs for all kids, was a way for us to make sure that we have another instrument to try to identify students with potential to do things that they may have not necessarily saw themselves doing. And we spoke about a wide variety of courses. So it was a very positive meeting. And I thought it was a great way to also, for us to step outside of the bounds of the school district and having this conversation with some community members that typically don't necessarily even come to the community conversations. Which then led to the second piece I want to talk about. Thank you very much for those board members who are online. We had a community conversation on Saturday. Again, it was well received. A lot of people in attendance virtually. And one of the big takeaways, they want to get back to in-person community conversations, which we probably will be doing, and still having a virtual option. And as I mentioned before, typically that would have been one of the last ones. We have one more coming that's larger focus on budget, but with all the other year-end things happening, I may merge a lot of other stuff into that last one to try to address some of these year-end initiatives that's happening as well. So a lot of neat things happening related to those kind of things. In terms of year-end, that's a popular conversation right now. Between what are we doing for graduation, what are we doing for prom, what are we doing for moving up ceremony. So there's a lot of the what are we doing kind of things, because these are positive, exciting moments for students and families. And if there's one word I would ask, or words I would ask people to remember, maybe it's 2, 3, please be patient. And I'm just going to repeat that, please be patient, because the rules are changing so fast. And I give you a perfect example. I spent today drafting a correspondence that I'm hoping to send out to district-wide and otherwise maybe on Thursday and Friday. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I guarantee that whatever I wrote today is going to be different by Thursday and Friday. And it already is, because different announcements are coming out, be it at the federal level or state level. Otherwise, it's changing so much of what we're doing. And the good thing is, it's providing more flexibility. So as we plan for some of these year-end events, we're planning for something that can be scaled out when we get more flexibility. In other words, things that can become better in terms of either involving more guests or providing greater capacity for students to do certain things. And so we're trying to build these very scalable models, if you will, using that perspective. And so I'm asking people to be patient, because unfortunately some people aren't. And sometimes people want to know an answer about June, that I'm telling you, what we decide today is going to be different in June. And that's the reality. It's a positive thing because, again, be it today, the CDC talk about coming out with guidelines related to face masks outside and some of the stipulations with those kind of things. The governor making an announcement about expansion of capacity at certain venues. Those things are going to constantly happen. And so it's asking people to be patient as we go through some of those type things as well. Similarly, we had changes in the Regents exams, and so our school calendar. And so for the May agenda, I'm going to be bringing back a modified version of the school calendar for the board to make some modifications to, because we have some modifications that they're slight modification, but still it's an approved document by the board. So we want to have the board approve whatever those changes. Things such as how we look at the last day of school for seniors, for students, because of the change in Regents exam, that's the seniors, high school students, not necessarily only seniors. How we look at observation of Juneteenth on June 18th, because the state education department is not providing Regents under the exam to allow schools to do their observation. So how do we look at those kind of things? How do we modify the calendar accordingly? The Friday before Memorial Day weekend, how do we look at that from the contractual pieces? So I'm sharing all those things because those are some of the items that by the end of the week, we hope to resolve based upon as information come to a head and start providing some communication, and then having the board modify those changes on the calendar, more so from a formality perspective. So we can say that the last approved calendar for the record had those changes documented on them. So those are some of the kind of things that we're talking about as well. And so let me just pause this, see if there are any questions related to any of those things before I kind of transition to some of the presentation pieces.
If you're going to transition, I'm going to comment.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so just two things that I wanted to comment about what Dr. Robinson was saying. First of all, I'm sure somebody's sitting around this table saying, I didn't know about that meeting. It wasn't an open meeting.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make that clear. It was not an open meeting. This was it's a group that Supervisor Barrett, it's a committee that is formed in Clifton Park, and we were invited to speak on behalf of Shen. Really, Dr. Robinson and Dr. Wood. I was there as a rival. But they did a terrific job. So I just want to make that clear that wasn't, secondly, I just want to comment on end of year activities. And I wish I had all of the parents of the graduating seniors listening to my comment right here, but I know they're not. But there are 3 parents sitting around this board table that have seniors that are going to graduate. So I'm sure no more than us would like to know about the year-end activities. But I, more than everybody, as well as Todd, as well as Bob, understand that we do need to be patient. There will be wonderful things that happen for our seniors. I believe that, and I know that. I watched it last year when all the parents were so very upset that they thought their children were not going to get anything, and they spent 13 years and nothing was going to happen for them. And you know what? It turned out to be a spectacular day. So all I'm going to say, and I'm going to tell other parents to listen to my comment and go back and listen to it, just be patient. Things are changing very quickly, and I know our seniors will be celebrated in the way they should be. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stevenson. So I'm just going to transition. I want to just check one thing to make sure that we have individuals on the Google Meet. Mrs. Petra, can you hear me, Gail, very clearly? Thank you. Just want to make sure that the sound is still good. So as you see on the agenda, we have several study session items. And the first item, I just want to read a little bit some comments that I initially shared with the board. The board approved a contract for field turf to help us manage our fields. When I say manage, providing expertise on everything from frequency of mowing to different things, to even emergency treatment of fields under the regulations. And the second one is the emergency treatment piece that I wanted to focus on a little bit. And so it's important that, and we also have here, and I haven't come forward in the second year, Mr. Gerard from Turf Management. So we looked around and tried to find out who are the people who who's doing this work for schools and have done this work for schools for a long period of time and have done this work for schools very well. And he comes highly recommended. So clearly we tapped into his expertise. And if you recall, it was about this time last year, and ironically, I think I had a shoulder surgery last time, and I have knee surgery, so I keep looking at the calendar, see, like every time this year, I have some kind of new body part being worked on. And we had a resident who protested our process, if you will, and I now want to use the word process, because the law allows the Board of Education to declare an emergency to use certain herbicides on fields. And oftentimes people say, well, they're banned. Actually, they're not banned in terms of not being sold. It's just in order for them to be used as a school, there needs to be a declaration of emergency with proper justification accordingly. And so that's the first thing that I want to make sure that that's very clear with that piece of it. And so we also went through a process last year of communicating with the New York State Education Department. And we will do that again prior to recommendation coming to the board, which at this point I'm anticipating will be the first business meeting in May, because we do have 2 fields right now, athletic fields, that we desperately need to address using some type of herbicide to rectify and remedy, and then take those fields offline for a period of time and allow them to recoup, regrow. But it's not my expertise, so I'm not going to try to pretend to know that. If you see my yard, you would know that it's not my expertise. I'm that sore thumb yard in my neighborhood. And so, by the way, talking about yards in the neighborhood, it's probably the same thing that everyone does to all the yards in the neighborhood every day. The difference is people do that to beautify their lawn. In this case, we're doing it to make the lawn healthy so that they're playable in terms of impact on students, athletes falling on the turf and those kind of things. So 2 different perspectives with those situations. And so very targeted areas that we're looking to address with this particular piece of it. So we went through a lot of steps. After last year, we tried an organic approach to it. Brought in a company that we thought, and it didn't work, quite frank with you. We brought in experts from Cornell Cooperative Extension who specialize in turf and grass. And they did a lot of tests, and they kind of came up, yeah, you guys need to take some other steps to remedy this, take those fields offline. Essentially, the things that Mr. Gerard reaffirmed, if you will, when he came in from his expert lens as well. And so that's part of the reason why we brought him in, one, to have an assessment of all our fields, and then also an assessment of our practices in terms of, again, how frequency, how often we mow, the length, the height, of all those kind of things that, quite frankly, with you, unless you're in that business, you probably wouldn't think about on a regular basis. And so I'm sharing that with the board because of, again, hopefully the May meeting will be bringing a recommendation, and it's up to the board. It's up to the board to accept our recommendations, declare certain fields as emergency under certain conditions, under certain treatments. And the requirements are very strict. Notification requirements are strict. And we often go well beyond anyway with any of these notifications. Taking the fields offline and cording them off so that they're not used is something that's well beyond the regulations. Ensuring, people talk about groundwater. This doesn't have any impact on groundwater because of the absorption of the thing right into the plants right away. That's destroying the fields right now. So again, I'm not an expert, but I wanted to let the board know that a lot of due diligence has gone in and will continue going before we get to a point where we're saying that we have to ask the board to declare emergency so that we can use certain herbicides to address certain fields. And that's how the law allows for that process to occur. So I'm going to, Mr. Gerard is here. I'm going to ask him if he can come forward. Mr. Gerard, we typically speak from the area up here. And if there are questions that the board have, and I'm going to start that way. If you have any questions, he's the person that would have the answers. And then we'll go from there. Mr. Preston.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned, one of the practices we had 2 years ago was that when we apply the herbicide, we wait considerable time, at least 2 days.
Mr. Gerard, you're going to be up here. I'm sorry. I'll be up here. Go ahead.
So one of our practices, we apply it and then wait more than a day. You go around the neighborhoods and look apart and have to, it's 1 day. You'll see those plastic sticks with a sign, and it's 1 day. We've waited longer as a current practice, as a practice up until a year ago, I think it was 2 days or more. But the question for me is that, is there a difference in exposure to people? Is it better to wait 2 days as the herbicide gets deeper into the plants and no one's on top of it and no one's stirring it up, versus 1 day? Because I think one of the things that needs to be understood is that if schools and towns with our big fields are applying this, and I'll also talk later on in a specific example I have in my family where a family member was injured on a field, not a Shen field, because of the lack of, or actually increase of weeds that permeated through the field. But if that difference is 2 days or 3 days, and it's not a case of exposure at that point, is that probably one of the better ways to approach this? Just simply keep it out there for 2 or 3 days before people play on it?
So I'm going to turn to the turf expert, Mrs. Gerard.
Well, sorry if I take this up.
Yeah.
The New York State pesticide law requires us to post any area that's treated with a herbicide or any type of pesticide, and the sign says, do not enter for 24 hours. In my estimation, the longer you can wait, the better. Because what instantly happens when you apply that pesticide or herbicide, it immediately starts to break down with sunlight. It's absorbed into the plant, and once it hits the soil, it starts to break down through microbial activity, degradation. The particular weed killer that we propose to use has a half-life of 1 to 14 days, meaning half of it would be gone in that amount of time. It all depends on how many sunny days we have, what type of soil you have, as to how fast it will break down. That's where you come to the 1 to 14 days. In all the research I've done on it, because I do a lot of school systems, I talked to actually the people that manufacture this product. And they're saying that once it's dry and it's in the plant, it's safe. I hope that answers your question somewhat.
Thank you.
So I did have, just, we're referring to what happened in the past, and one of the things, and you talked about the process, and I think that's really important, is the process for how we go about this. So in the past, it was specific to when we declare an emergency, just every year it can't be an emergency. So with this plan, going forward, how will it be different than what's happened in the past, so that we're not back here every year approving pesticides that, and I'm also going to add, these pesticides, if you go into the store and you try to buy them, you can buy them just like you can buy any kind of poison. It's, they have warnings signs, and, people with certain vulnerabilities won't put them on their lawns or, for those very reasons. And so the law was put in place to protect. So I understand what you're sharing to talk about the risk, but that's why that law is in place.
So I think, and again, it's a matter of interpretation, to be frank with you. The declarations in the past were more non-specific than not. In other words, the declarations were athletic fields, and versus field 7 and field 8 for X, Y, and Z reasons. So that's the difference between what we're going to be bringing to the board. Specific fields, specific reasons, whatever mitigations that we have taken before we got to this point. And so that's the difference. In the past, it was more, I want to say, open-ended is probably the first word that came to my mind. It was more non-specific than not. And so then it seemed as if, okay, well, if it's athletic fields, how do we closer define then what that emergency is, what caused that to be now an emergency situation? That doesn't mean that we won't have future needs. Always gonna have future needs, yeah. Whatever, that's 30 plus fields that we have to maintain all the time, and different fields have different conditions between either what's the soil, what's the grass, what's the sun. So there are many, many factors that impact how fields react, if you will, to various elements. And the big piece of what I was trying to find is how do we avoid a problem in one field that as a result of someone not mowing something, it is spread to another field, Next thing you know, you have it all over, become very pervasive across the district. And when you think about fields on campus, for example, if you go from the back of Coda all the way down to Sago, we have multiple fields that's used for different reasons. And so a big part of that in trying to identify where those ones that we need to absolutely address so that it doesn't become something that's spread and wide and go pervasive as we move forward. So I think that the lesson learned, if you will, Mrs. Hoffman, is the need to be more specific. And also the piece that Mr. Gerard will bring, and so since I've been here, this is at least my awareness, operations could have done it before, but from a district perspective, that we actually brought someone in that I said before, he's not only talking about application of herbicide, he's talking about working with our maintenance crew, talk about all those type things that we can do to avoid everything from watering to overseeding to all those things that you do to prevent having a situation that you have to declare an emergency. So I think
And that
that's
is
what's
the
going to be different
difference,
moving
right,
forward.
yes.
Exactly.
I agree, and I do appreciate that. I think we do need planning, and this is that, so thank you.
And again, and I gotta say, I mean, I'm probably like the most typical layperson. I put gas in my lawnmower and cut the grass. I don't think about the height so much. I don't think about this and this. But when you think about the sheer magnitude of what we have here and the utilization of it becomes a big issue. So the health and safety piece is a big piece of it. So let me just take out of context for a second of grass field and put it in the context of our turf field. Every year, the turf field, we have to do a test, a compaction test, to make sure that turf field has enough of those little pebbles in it. So when people fall, they base upon sports, there's enough compaction that avoid injury. And so a lot of people don't know we do that, but we have to do that. One, because it's huge liability. Two, and most importantly, we want to keep kids safe because when either be it for phys ed or sports or our community groups, so you're going to start seeing this pretty soon. I call the little leaguers come out, all the little kids and start going. So we have to make sure that from that perspective that we address those things in ways. And so somebody say, well, what's the health and safety? Our health and safety is what happened to the potential end users, which are largely our kids when they're using our field. Is this something that John Q. Public is going to be impacted by? No, because John Q. Public isn't on our fields unless they're on a weekend here playing weekend warriors, which sometimes we do get people come in and put together groups of kids try to do stuff. Even in that situation, we still have to make sure that our fields are in condition that even someone who's not authorized to be in our fields, that the fields themselves is not the source of a potential injury for be it compaction or unevenness that lends to knee injuries. And I'm sharing all those kind of things with you because that's what most people don't think about. We don't do this so our fields going to look nice and green. Nice and green is an after effect of it's about how impact proof, if you will, those fields are when we're using them and how do they tolerate the use over time. And that's why even this referendum that we have coming for May is to look at that whole, what I'm calling a coda field. So we could have greater utilization, particularly in wet weather, of those facilities and not having to have the risk of fields not up to standards for playability or physicality, those kind of things. So even the referendum goes with this piece of our larger management of access for play or athletic space. So I want to get aboard the whole context because there's always a method to everything we're trying to do to improve our facilities so that our kids can do things safely. And also things that are as environmentally friendly, if you want to use that word, as possible. That's why the declaration is there, that it's not every day people just go out and spray and do the stuff that typically people do at home. It's very targeted when we take things offline, how we keep offline, Mr. Preston's question, make sure that it's not being used, make sure that the field could grow back, so we not have to have an emergency again 6 months down the road because we came on back on it too fast and things of that nature. So, Mr. Jordan, please, you fill in the gaps. I feel like I spend a lot of time talking to those, and I'm so impressed with them. I walked out of feeling bad as a household owner, thinking like, my God, I need to do more at home. But I'm so impressed because he had certain knowledge, and I'm thinking like, wow, I didn't even think about those kind of things, intricacies when you think about this, but that's his profession.
Another thing that, good point you brought up about the artificial turf and checking the compaction levels, that should be done on your natural turf fields as well. And what's happening since 2010, when this law went into effect, and they took herbicides and pesticides away, those are tools used by turf grass managers to create good, healthy turf. So without that, what's happened is your fields get overused. The fields are open. That's how you get weeds in the fields. Turf grass has a very fibrous root system. And that fibrous root system is what the athlete uses to plant, pivot. When he falls, it stops concussions because it absorbs impact. Okay? When your fields become infested with weeds, the grass starts to dissipate because weeds are broadleaf, just like the word said. They have a broad leaf, and what happens is they shade out your turf grass. And when they do that, turf grass cannot conduct photosynthesis. It cannot produce a root system. It starts to thin and die. Your field then becomes hard. It becomes hard because number one, it can't drain. It doesn't have that, the soil is not open to absorb water. So when you do get rain, it becomes wet at the surface, muddy and slippery, all right? So what we're trying to do here at Shenendehowa is come in and create a turf management program so that we're doing what we need to do to not have to use pesticides. You have two fields right now that I would say it's an emergency because they're so full of clover that I wouldn't let my kid play on it, especially at a varsity level. They need to be eradicated of the clover and then overseeded so we can get a good crop of grass in there. Fortunately, one of them is an irrigated field, so it'd be kind of easy to do. If we attempt the renovations without eradicating the weeds, they're perennial weeds. They'll come back rapidly and they'll win. If there was a way to do it without the pesticide, I'd be doing it. But what I've seen there, we really need to do something about it. But if you look around, the clover has infested your entire campus. So when the guys are mowing, it's going to be brought to different fields. There's no way we can stop that. How we're going to stop it is by creating healthy, thick turf. We're not going to create an area for those weeds to grow in. The other thing, the reason that we have so much clover is inherent to soil that is low in nitrogen. And that's what happened. We're cranking up our nitrogen levels. We're going on an aggressive fertilizer program to stimulate our plants. All fertilizer does is help a plant do what it naturally does. So at the different times of year, spring and in the fall, when our grasses root, that's when they root, between 55 and 70 degree soil temperatures, we want to stimulate them with a little more fertilizer to produce more roots for us, to create healthier turf. And if we can do that in our crews adjust their mowing schedules, there's going to be times in the spring, we need to mow these fields twice a week, not once a week, because we're stimulating them. They're growing, they're producing. If we let them elongate too much, it's going to be at the mercy of the root system. So we need better equipment. We need to be able to core aerate after every season, pull plugs out of the soil, release the carbon dioxide, enhance our drainage, overseed. We need overseeders. We need to get on an aggressive overseeding program. We can't just go out and mow these fields and play sports on them. Those days are gone. Especially at Shenendehowa with the amount of D1 athletes you produce here.
So, Mr. President, Jason, if you don't mind. Sure.
I was just gonna say, just as a newer board member also, this has just been really informative and helpful just to hear the due diligence that's gone into the decisions and where we are today, and even just the coordination with SED and for cooperative extension. It's really helpful to hear all of that that's gone into it. And to understand, why we arrived at this decision and, what the recommendation will be coming forward. And then even understanding the targeted approach here, right? You're talking about a couple of specific fields and it's an overall program. So I just want to say, just getting that background was really helpful. So.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
When we looked at this about a year and a half ago, reading through it, you mentioned a law in 2010, but I sort of inferred that there's a law and then there's sort of a policy on top of the law. It gets confusing. Are you interpreting it strictly as a law that says you have to abide by calling it emergency if you're a school?
So our policy mimics the law almost exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the law is education law that comes from so we're mimicking what education law comes from. And ironically, this applies to if we run schools and some other agencies. So the use of herbicide and pesticide is a big thing. So if we were some other agency, we would have to get authority from. If you want to say we have to follow another set of laws, see, we follow education law in this case, and that's why, as if you recall, Mr. President, when we were on here, and I linked it to the Friday Bulletin, the memo from State Education Department last year. So you have, that was actually the last memo that we received from them. And they were fine with it. I think Mrs. Hoffman's question brought it to the crux of the matter. It was not an issue of is it allowable or not. The question is being more specific versus non-specific. So it's the two sides of that spectrum, right? And then how do we balance it to do the stuff that's environmentally sound and protect folks while that treatment is taking place. So again, I don't want to prolong it too much because we do have a lot of things, but I think it's important for the board to have an appreciation of the background, as Mr. Gianna said. So once we, Mr. Gerard and Barb Salek and August Freeman work with that department, and we come up with not only the declaration, but they're working on plans to look at how we look at those things differently, which is needed. To really have a comprehensive turf management plan, and we'll invest in it accordingly. Just like we do with anything else, that once we get a different insight, we have to invest to make sure that we're taking advantage of the information and turn it into practical use. And so already some of the things are different, and so who knows, we'll be buying different equipment and doing different things, which is what we should be doing. We should be investing in our facilities to keep them in shape where they are. So, and then the capital project is going to help a lot with that as well. But this also brings another set of management issues too. So everything there's a trade-off, right? In everything that we do, we have to balance between all those things to preserve a quality facility. So again, if there are questions that comes up after this meeting, I'd ask if you send me an email and I'll get whatever specifics from Mr. Gerard, who's been gracious enough to drive down from Glens Falls, is it?
Yes.
Glens Falls to be here with us tonight. And so I really appreciate you doing that. And he's working very closely with our folks here, so there'll be more to come. And maybe some point next year, we'll do an update on turf management, so you can kind of see some of the things that we do. I think it's a worthwhile piece. We have a lot of acreage, folks, that we have to take care of, a lot of acreage. So again, Mr. Gerard, thank you, sir. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And so as we transition from turf to updates, and speaking of updates, so we'll be graced by Anna Sugarman, who we have online with us, and I'm just going to transition for a second so the board can see those individuals. Online, we have Peggy Salvatore, we have Michaela's waving right there. We have Devin And we have
Matt Dillon.
Matt Dillman. So we have four individuals going to be joining Mrs. Sugarman in this presentation, and you
It looks like Gail had your president is eavesdropping, so that's lovely.
So Hannah, once we start presenting,
Yes, sir.
you won't see them, so they need to know that that business is to them.
Okay, they already have the slide presentation in front of them, and we're backing it up.
So
Almost back. Perfect.
you want to do this?
Can I?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. So, I wrote up my script for tonight because I wanted to make sure that I was articulate in sharing with you the work that has been done since March 13th last year when we walked away from here with whatever we could fill in our satchels. So good evening, members of the Board of Education. I know many of you, and many from different events, and Dr. Robinson. I am Anna Rose Sugarman, the Professional Development Coordinator at Shenendehowa. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to share with you the work of our teachers this evening. This is indeed a time of great celebration. As we take a glimpse back to a year ago, we remember when we were thrown into another world, one of uncertainty, one of fear, and one of curiosity and immediacy and our need to serve our students. We left our familiar world of full classrooms furnished with educational tools and materials, halls filled with colleagues and support staff, children laughing and singing together, stepping into an unfamiliar universe with parents and children online. Technology as our means of creating community, hoping that we could go back to where we had been. While grieving this personally and professionally, we all took on the challenge of experimentation with instructional formats, tech tools, collaborative planning, and social emotional support. The work that is presented this evening shares just a few examples of the outstanding commitment, dedication, imagination, risk-taking, and collaboration that has been generated as we pass through this portal of the pandemic. Okay, gotta help me on this one. I can't get it to mute.
It's okay.
Thank you. Can you click? Thank you. As you sit back and listen to their stories, know that they are part of our story, our history, and will impact our learning community in tremendous ways as we move forward into 2021-22. You will see examples of full in-class, socially distanced classrooms, hybrid learning, and complete virtual learning. So sit back and enjoy. The story begins with Peggy Salvador, a fabulous teacher, regardless of the challenge or shift.
Hello, thank you, Anna. I'm sorry, my photo in the middle of this slide is not loading, so I hope it does pop up, but I'm sorry for that. Challenging, oh, there we go, awesome, thank you. Challenging and fulfilling. These are two words that describe this school year. After spending 28 years teaching art at the elementary and high school levels, this past September, I became a second grade teacher. I was immediately embraced by the Carried On family and second grade team. Damian Corsetti, Diane McMahon, Brian Parker, and Stephanie Holmes have guided and supported my success at every turn. Their mentoring and support helped me develop confidence in delivering grade level curriculum and teaching. My teammates are sharp, flexible people, always work to find the best ways to reach every student. I'm thrilled to have had this opportunity to be a member of the Caradon family. Even though my responsibilities shifted, I find enjoyment every day in the classroom, and I will continue to share my excitement for learning and the world around me. Art has always been a creative opportunity for our students. I have shown my students that they can apply their creativity in the language of art to any subject. Thank you.
We left our familiar world, and teachers joined together this year more than ever to plan their lessons. They streamlined curriculum and ensured consistent instruction as they worked together using the power of collaboration to improve student learning. Erin Smith, Hannah Walsh, and Bonnie Somas share their collective work through this short video.
Hello, Shenendehowa Board of Education. I am Erin Smith, speaking on behalf of our awesome Reading 6 PLC with Mrs. Hannah Walsh and Mrs. Bonnie Somas. Reading is truly our jam. Let me start by saying our motto this year is flexibility and patience. We are in a unique situation in 6th grade where we are simultaneously teaching our virtual and in-person students at the same time every day. It would be remiss of me to not mention our awesome 6th grade Reading PLC tri-building. We have a Google Classroom where we share materials, reading skills that we are teaching, our classroom book a day that goes along with our March Madness and novel resources. Speaking of March Madness, we had a lot of fun comparing picture books and finding a winner. If you take a walk along our hallways, you will see the brackets posted. It was really important that our lessons are accessible to all students. In looking at our Google Classrooms, you will see that we need to post videos of the picture books read, of a skill being taught, of an example for a student. Here is our picture book fluency assignment that was showcased in Sensational, where students chose a picture book that represented them as a mirror, or where they learned something new about someone else as a window, or both. Students recorded themselves using Flipgrid. This made it accessible to all students, both at home and in person. We use Jamboard. We really encourage students in the past to have manipulatives and to be moving. However, this year with COVID, we are not able to do that. That's where Jamboard comes into play. Students can use the Jamboard to manipulate and to learn about Greek Latin word roots in this example, which supports one of our standards. It's also really important that students are assessed in real time so we can see our students working in our classroom and at home. We've been using ReadWorks, Newsella, GoFormative, along with teacher-made play posits. I hope this was helpful in learning how we have shifted our teaching during this pandemic. Thank you so much for listening.
We now move into mathematics, the mathematics classroom. So join us as we listen to Michaela Vander share her embedded practices of providing feedback and structuring easy navigation for student learning.
So I teach high school geometry and geometry lab at High School East. So this was a year of hybrid learning for us. So when I was looking at at what it meant to do hybrid learning and how I could best have my students learn throughout the year. And also looking at the new block scheduling, I was able to kind of change my thinking of what class time should be like. So instead of focusing on the old school style of class time being kind of more learning and taking notes and then practicing outside of the classroom, I've instead focused this year on giving students constant feedback during class, making it more of a self-paced discovery environment, and being more of a facilitator in my classroom. And both the block scheduling and the hybrid situation has allowed me to do that. So within my slide, I have embedded links to different examples of activities that I've done that you're more than welcome to click on your own time if that's something that you're interested in. One of the main platforms that I've been using to give feedback is GoFormative. It's a wonderful platform. So there's a presentation link there that I've created about why GoFormative is such a useful practice in that high school level. Because of block scheduling as well, I've been able to incorporate more learning games and collaborate with my department about different learning games that can help students become more engaged in their learning. So we've done things like Battleship and Connect 4 to kind of help students communicate with each other, help each other, and also learn while having fun. This year, I've also been creating videos for each of my students for all my lessons, so that whether you're at home and maybe you have a couple of distractions going on at home and you can't focus, you can pause videos, rewatch them, whatever you need to do to help you better understand information. This year, on my second slide, I've also learned the importance of organization. So when students are at home and in the building, we really need a way for them to quickly locate information. So my Google Classroom has become a great place for organizations. The due dates are really helping to keep students organized so they can see what assignments they have, what needs to be due for each and every class. And I really love the Shen initiatives that came out about how we should organize our classroom, because I do think that has been helpful. And then I've also been able to create daily organization with agendas so that everything's in one place. Students can easily click on assignments and they don't need to kind of be going to all these different places to participate in these activities that they're doing every day. So it's been a journey this year, but it's been a very enjoyable one, and I look forward to continuing my journey next year.
So we move forward into our technology teams. They've been the front runners in project-based learning and performance-based assessment for decades. Once again, with teachers having the freedom to design and innovate, inventive platforms for student-driven learning transforms the process. Matt Dillman, so aptly, shares his phenomenal metacognitive, reflective, and generative process.
Hello, everybody. First, thank you so much for letting me share a few pieces of my school year with you. For those that don't know me, my name is Matt Dillman, and I teach design and drawing for engineering at High School West and principles of engineering at High School East. This year has been all about bridging gaps, like the gap between students and the resources that they need to be successful in class. Luckily, I started the year with a pretty deep collection of lesson videos, online activities, and digital assessments. Students had their resources right at their fingertips from the beginning, and I was able to spend my time strengthening them by leveraging new apps and technologies to better connect kids with the information. Things like Play Positive took my existing lesson videos and turned them into more interactive, thought-provoking activities with a much higher degree of student accountability. Instead of asking students to present research topics in front of the classroom, I taught them to record and edit videos. The results were terrific, with higher quality presentations that were well rehearsed, well edited, and that can be saved and used as examples for years to come.
My name is Eve Garrett, and today I will be teaching you about biomedical engineering. A biomedical engineer combines the engineering.
The inability to complete drawing exercises with paper and pencil was quite a hindrance at first, but after switching these activities to Kami, I ended up liking the digital version better. No grubby eraser smudges where students make mistakes. Kids can zoom way in on their work to be more precise, and best of all, I could embed video instructions right into every form. So students always had help from their teacher just a click away. Since my assessments have been conducted online using eDoctrina for years, this year gave me the opportunity to improve on them and to design new support resources to help students through their assessments, such as practice tests and retakes. I spent a lot of time this year designing or modifying projects to ensure that there was no gap between students and the hands-on learning that they look forward to from an engineering class. In DE, kits of supplies were sent home to CDL students to allow them to complete precision measurement labs and to build prototypes of their puzzle design projects. In POE, I developed project kits using the CNC laser, so every student could gain hands-on experience and better understand the mechanical concepts behind gear trains, simple machines, and fluid power. Group projects that used to involve shared supplies, working closely with others, were redesigned so that students could still engage in the activities while following COVID protocols. The biggest gap that I identified this year wasn't in access to resources or even hands-on learning, but a gap in soft skills. This year's ninth graders missed out on some critical months of eighth grade, in which they normally develop work habits that are needed for success in high school. A tremendous amount of time and effort has been spent coaching students to speak up in class, contact me when they need help, put forth their best effort on assignments, take initiative, and seize opportunities to improve their grades, communicate with teachers and peers, set goals, and manage their time and workloads effectively. It's taken some students a long time to come around, but the growth is happening. I see more improvement every day. As a teacher who normally focuses on technical skills, this year has given me the chance to step back and find better ways to foster those soft skills. In many cases, this has led to better connections with students and families. And that's something that I'd really like to hold on to once school returns to normal. Thanks so much for letting me share my year with you, and if you're ever passing through the high school and you want to see what we are up to, feel free to pop in anytime. Hello, board. Hello, board.
Mac, are you there? Are you out there, Mac? Oh, we can hardly hear you. That's okay. Did you want to add anything? All right, thank you for being there. Good. Devin Egan made a presentation to our professional learning committee this year when we asked to hear about shifts that teachers were making early on in their practice. I could not resist asking her to share the transformation in her thinking and application to create opportunities for learner reflection and creation.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me tonight. As Anna said, my name is Devin Egan, and I have the distinct opportunity of teaching actually 3 different levels of English over at the 9th grade building at High School West. So I would say the biggest transformation in my teaching this year has been really thinking about how to maximize the block that we shifted to this year from 40 minutes to the 78 or 80-minute period here. So even in a typical year, some of the main obstacles that we face as English teachers are mentioned over there on the left. Particularly, I love this quote from Katie Woodray that talks about years of compliance in task-oriented writing have taught students the habit of following directions. Too many students no longer trust themselves to make decisions about their writing. And this is certainly no knock against any of the teachers or programs we have here at Shen, but I do think we tend to see students who can sort of get by just writing what the teacher wants them to write and moving on. And I would argue the same thing, unfortunately, can happen in reading too. And what happens to students' power to make decisions about their writing and read for pleasure, find things that they're interested in. So through some research, I found that the beginnings of the solution here is that as a teacher, I really need to make time in class to show my students what is valued, what they should value, and hopefully not just go through the motions, but really develop habits of readers and of writers. So not just students, but readers and writers in the real world. So one of the texts that I found really emphasized, especially in a blog, this idea of everyday practices. I'm going to show the students what we should value by reading every day, whether that's the class novel or choice books. We're going to write every day in our writer's notebooks, and I'll write alongside with them. We're going to study every day. We're going to create every day. We're going to have time to share every day. I'm still in the beginning stages this year with some of the challenges of hybrid and block of putting this together. But what I've seen so far, I think, has been really powerful. Again, creating these habits of learning, because the students will pick up on what we show them we value by what we make time for, and implicitly what we show we don't really value by what we don't make time for. So on my next slide, I just want to show you a couple examples of what this looks like, at least for me as an English teacher. So no longer am I giving students a list of questions that they have to answer in the book. As Matt Dillon said, it's more taking the coach role in their teaching. So as we're looking at a book, students are reading like readers. They're the ones coming up with their own open-ended questions as they read along in the book, and then come to class, posing those to other students in class. By the same token, instead of just looking at a book and analyzing what the writer did, now what we're doing is taking some of those moves that the writers make, how they use a particular strategy, and now they're applying that to their own writer. So it's no more what did the writer do, but how can you use that writer's strategies to improve your own piece that you are working on. So with these main shifts, I'm seeing some positive changes so far with the block schedule, and I'm excited to see where this can take me on my journey as we continue. Thank you.
Student voice and choice has been part of our district goals for the last 4 years. Teachers have started to integrate various options, knowing that students are more motivated and committed to learning when they have voice and choice in it. Becca Tommel has embraced this work, designing opportunities for students to engage, and she shared this video.
Don't be a fool. Each bit is cool. We all want to worry. To be a cool guy. First off, geography. Egypt's in Africa. That's pretty cool, but nothing really rhymes with Africa. Religion. Egyptians were polytheistic, and from what I hear, they were also artistic.
The last part of our story for this evening is from a teacher who moved from elementary 4th and 5th grade AIS to complete virtual learning kindergarten. Carrie Sloth ends our journey this evening with some of our youngest learners experiencing Shenendehowa for the first time with joy and excitement in a totally remote setting.
Three,
do I need next? Read.
47, 48, 49, 50.
Good job, friends. You did it. Right and E A. Good. Right. Putting them together? What are we doing, Ryan?
Taking away.
Words take away. Remember why some letters are red? Tell me.
A-E-I-O-U. That
What is
E-I-O-U. Those are vowels.
Yes, you guys are so smart. They're blue. Okay, now ask yourself, are my letters?
I'm gonna sit here to hold them up so you can read along. But Xavier is actually going to read this book for you. This is one of Xavier's favorite books.
Hi, I'm Zabby. Today I will be reading you The Tipping Hand.
Can you say bye?
I'd like to thank all these teachers, these amazing teachers who stepped up when I asked them to offer a presentation. Each one of them are such extraordinary people and professionals. I'd also like to thank you, the Board of Education, Dr. Robinson and Dr. Wood, and all of our administrative people that work together to provide teachers and support staff to move forward into this next phase of our evolutionary process. With your support, resources and materials were provided, as well as the belief and hope that our professionals could grow rapidly and with great creativity meet the challenges of the time through adaptive change. Thanks goes out to all of our teachers, support staff, and parents who help make learning happen and open the door of possibility for what our next iteration will be as we move forward into 2021-22. Indeed, humans are the heart and the strength of our work. I thank you for Yay to all of you online, you're just amazing.
And this was incredible. This was inspiring. It was beautiful. It was really well done. You had a nice span of teachers from kindergarten to high school, and watching the individual, the children in the CBL kindergarten class interact with each other. That's just incredibly heartwarming. But also, so we're being able to see how CBL in person, hybrid, all of it worked this year. We talk to our kids, but they're not sharing this, or the mine zone. So this was just incredibly inspiring, and I'm so grateful that they took the time to put this together.
If I'd known I'd be following puppies and babies, I would have asked you.
Yeah, are you able to see the presentation? Yeah. Were you able to see the presentation last time?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Were you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you see it now. Okay.
Great, thank you. So Gail Pescifessa, who I think you've seen on the screen a few times, is one of our lead teachers for technology. She and John Bullington, another lead teacher for technology, and I believe Vanessa Kramer and may have helped with this as well, issued the annual technology survey. Those of you who are on DIDIC, which is our district instructional technology integration committee, are aware of the fact that each year we try to issue a survey to teachers and students and parents to get a gauge of how we're doing in terms of integration of technology. And of course, what a change, right? From when we previously issued the survey, we issued the Clarity survey in 2016 through 2019. And you see up here on the left side, that was how the Clarity survey, it focused on classroom, access, skills, environment, and then we would get a rating on it, like exemplary or advanced. And it was based on, it's a nationally normed survey. So we like to see those results because we could get a sense of areas that we're doing well into the door, but also areas for growth and where we can focus on professional development. The company, this Bright Bites company, already had in the works a redo of the survey with time, and they called it a modern learning survey, which I was wondering when you put modern in the title, how long it will last, how long it actually stays, as a modern learning survey. But it was very kind of well thought out that it just rolls in 2021, and of course it has some advanced analytics in the survey, and this year it focuses on e-learning, which I have to believe they had this in the works prior to the whole COVID thing, and also some social emotional topics that go along, which both are very timely in terms of feedback that we would like as a school system. And you saw, this, I guess in a way we're properly sequenced, and that you were able to see how much online learning and how many digital tools are really being used this year. So this year we had, you'll see the numbers across the top, and thank you to Gail Hitchcock, who does these incredible presentations, does all this layout. She makes this kind of graphic layout so that you don't just look at data and numbers, but it's so easy to make meaning from kind of how she puts the presentations together. So you'll see how many students took the survey, and teachers and parents. And sometimes we have conversations like, is it enough? Well, the survey instrument itself tells us that it's enough for us to draw some sort of meaning from the data. It's great to see that 100% of our families that took the survey indicate they have internet access at home. 13% say it's not very fast. I don't think my own son took the survey, but he would have definitely qualified, as saying it's not very fast. I don't know if any of you hear that on a nightly basis in your home, that your internet is not fast enough. I think that is a very common statement in many households. 80% always or usually have an environment conducive to learning outside of school. Not surprising. I know some nights at home, if I'm working in the loft area and there happens to be say, Rangers game on the TV downstairs, I too use noise-canceling headphones at the top of the stairs. And then 76% of our students always or usually have someone at home who can help them when needed. So this just kind of gives us a sense in which our kids are at home working during the school day. Do they have access to support? Obviously our younger students, it's more important that they have access to support, and how conducive it is to be learning from home. Pretty good numbers in general. In terms of technical support, more than 75% of our students and teachers always or usually get the tech support when they need it at school. Pretty good numbers. The reality is sometimes when they need the tech support, they need it at that moment, and the person who would be providing it needs to get in their car and drive to them, and so sometimes they try to remote in. But we try to be very responsive because we also understand how frustrating it is when you're trying to deliver a lesson and something in the text piece isn't working for you, and you're thinking, oh, I designed this great lesson, and now what? Now what are we going to do? And Grace, I'm sure you've experienced it, where the teacher has to pull out the backup plan because the text that was planned to go just isn't getting off the ground that day. Teachers rate that 81% of the time the quality of the support that they get when tech issues disrupt instruction as above average or average. And the reality is sometimes our folks can fix it, and sometimes it is upstream. It's something that we don't have control over, or it's something that the company that we subscribe to for a certain product, they're having issues, or they push through an upgrade that they think is ready, but it's really not ready for prime time. Schools struggle with it, and then they roll it back and they try to fix what the bugs are in the system. Moving on to the social emotional competencies for students. How easy or difficult is it for you to know when your feelings are making it hard for you to focus? I think that's such a fascinating question. It's the type of social emotional learning question was never seen on a parity survey, but they've added to this enhanced survey. Really pretty good response there. 76% say it's very easy. A quarter saying it's difficult to very difficult. We are working constantly to try to embed more elements of social emotional learning into the classroom across the board so that students are better able to process their feelings and identify what they might need to do to help them either concentrate or focus on the task at hand or prioritize their work. I also thought the returns were pretty good in terms of being able to learn from people with different opinions. So good, 26%, 70 or 63% saying it's easy, with only 11% indicating it's difficult or very difficult to learn from somebody with a different opinion. And really what we take most away from this are areas of professional learning. Each year we do the survey, we really zero in on professional learning. So the top part of the right-hand side are teachers who have spent 5+ days, that's a lot of PD, on formal school-sponsored ed tech PD. The elementary number is pretty typical for us. The middle school and high school, you'll see those numbers jump up significantly. There are two primary reasons for that. One, we had virtual Wednesdays, so they had half the day on Wednesdays to catch up on planning, and it's a challenge to plan for the in-person and the virtual at the same time, and that time was well spent, and or get additional training so that they could better access the students who are in the hybrid and deliver instruction to students who are in the hybrid. And so we probably never get, as long as we get the survey, we'll see returns of like 43 and 42% of our teachers getting 5 full days of professional development. And top 5 areas for additional professional learning: keeping students focused and on task when using technology. Yes, absolutely. Developing opportunities for critical thinking, and you'll notice that says all. In other words, that's all grades 3 through 12. Elementary, focused on professional learning. Middle school added online collaboration, and then high school mentioned that they have interest in learning more about blended learning platforms. So overall, we're pretty pleased with the feedback that we were able to get from the survey, this modern learning survey this year, and we'll be continuing to review the data, sharing it out with building leadership, academic leadership, and most importantly, using it to plan professional development going forward.
So again, thank you, Mr. Stevenson and the board for the indulgence. I say indulgence, and sometimes people think I'm being insulting when I say that, because you don't have to, because you, as a board, you've given us the opportunity to come back and show how our goals document come to life. And I just want to not to prolong this too much, but I think the presentation by Mrs. Sugarman is such a powerful presentation. And while it captured in a very fun and interesting way, what it shows is that through the pandemic as a system, we have truly thrived. And I can't emphasize that point enough. As a system, we have thrived. And kudos goes to a lot of folks. And yes, while we highlighted and showcased a few teachers there that span the grade levels and content areas, it's a collective effort. It's a collective effort by every employee here. And I want to pause and emphasize that point, because oftentimes when you do things well, people take for granted that there's a lot of work behind the scenes. You know, so from the first conversation, we started talking about turf and grass, to end with a conversation that talked about surveying parents and students about their perspective on technology this year, a year when there was such a heavy reliance on technology, and people had very strong positive feelings about it. And I gotta tell you, if you do this, it's not gonna be the case in many places. And so I wanna say to the board, it's because, I mean, truly, and I tell people all the time, people are like, why, you've been sharing so long, why? What's the secret to staying sharing so long? I was like, you know what? One, there's always a challenge to do things better. And two, we have supportive people who allow us as educators, as people who are leaders for learning, people commit to work for the organization, to always try to do better and more things for kids. And I think that, again, I want to pause on it, because that was a huge thing to see how the year has gone. And yes, could we have done some things differently? Absolutely. Were there some things that we didn't do as well? Absolutely. Were there a lot of lessons learned? A ton of them. And so as we plan forward, we're not planning to go from bad to better. We're actually going from better to great. And that's our goal. And that's a bigger challenge, by the way, to say to folks that, yes, you have done a lot of good work. And we're going to say, pause, take a breath, and guess what? Let's do it again, folks. September 22, or should I say September 21, for the 21-22 school year, is going to be better than September 20 for the 2021 school year. Because we have the commitment, we have the experience, and more importantly, we have the commitment and conviction by a lot of folks. So I just want to just kind of punctuate that point as we do these presentations, not only for the board, but certainly for the public, and as we post these things online, so hopefully people can have a real appreciation of what we're trying to do with the system. So again, thank you, Mr. Stevens.
So there are no action items tonight as a study session, so we'll skip to the, for good of the order. Does anybody have anything? Bob?
I've got one thing, and this is, you should see an email from NISBA regarding resolutions. So what this means is that we close out 2021, which is the advocacy we had. Key thing when we close out are resolutions that have aged at 5 years that sort of fall off the table because they haven't been lobby and push for them. And there's one date you don't want to look at it, July 16th. At that point, we should present our best idea, maybe one or two resolutions we can agree on to further advocate. And I think we've got more than enough topics coming forward as we proceed through election to give us some good ideas on what we want to advocate. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for reflecting on that too. Anybody else have anything to share? Okay, before we adjourn, I do want to make one other announcement is every year, and appropriately so, we have board members that take continuing education. Dr. Robinson will send out, if you look at NISBA, they have continuing education courses. Some we are obligated to take, others, there's only a few of those, and others we take on our own time. So as we recognize board members that go above and beyond, we do have two tonight to recognize. So Gusta, who is not here, is recognized as a level 1 board achievement award, which includes a certificate. And Mrs. Hoffman earned a level 3 board mastery award, certificate for a free one-day event, certificate of recognition, and a commemorative folio, which is Richard, which is very nice. So thank you to you and Gusta for your time, your effort, your dedication to our community and everything that you do. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, can I have a motion to, okay, Jason is first, a second, all in favor? Okay. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
That's wonderful, Naomi.